On Sunday, the LA Thieves took on the Boston Breach for their last match before the Major One tournament in Spain. And the Thieves had another series where they took it to a game five. They kept it close, but in the end, they weren't quite able to close it out. They started off on Vault for hardpoint, and they ended up losing this one 250 to 206. It was a pretty disappointing outcome, but the Thieves actually started off pretty hot, I would say. They were up about 30 points, and then there was a disconnect. Snoopy was the player on the side of Breach. He ended up disconnecting, and that forced a reset to start the match from the beginning, unfortunately. And from there, it seemed like Snoopy just couldn't be stopped. It was like he had a full reset, not just from the game, but like everything reset for him. And he ended up having an insane map that helped lead Boston to that win. He was the only guy who was positive on the side of Boston, going 41 and 23 plus 18. Everybody else was negative for them. And then on the side of Thieves, everybody besides Scrap was positive, and Scrap was only -1. The map itself was pretty close most of the time, and the Thieves actually had a decent lead for a couple hills, basically starting the second rotation. And then after that, Boston was able to kind of fight back into it and take the lead once again. And once they did that, the Thieves really didn't climb back into it. I think at that point, that was when Snoopy had got really comfortable and was just killing everybody and everything. He could not be stopped, it seemed like. And the Thieves at that point just weren't really able to hold a hill. Boston was able to either break in or hold whichever hill they wanted, and the Thieves weren't able to really do much about it, it seemed like. And it's really tough when you have three players on the side of Boston who go negative and only one guy who goes basically double positive. That's really not ideal, especially when you have the talent that the Thieves do. They kept it somewhat close towards the end, but it was just too little, too late, and you can't really let a team get that far ahead and expect to be able to come back. It doesn't really matter what team it is. Obviously, those things can happen every now and then, but you're at the professional level. Most teams, once they have a lead, are going to be able to close it out, and that's exactly what Boston did in this map one hardpoint. That leads us into the red card search and destroy, where once again the Thieves did not close out the map. They ended up losing this one 6-3, and it was a little disappointing because the Thieves actually played Optic on red card fairly well. They ended up winning that map, and I felt like they looked comfortable on it. To start off the map, they did look good. They won the first two rounds, I believe, and after that, it was Boston who kind of started to run away with it. Snoopy had a crazy ace in round three or round four, sorry, and he didn't slow down after that. He was 15 and 8 to finish the map, a +7, and then everybody else on his team had 5 or less kills. So he was really the one pushing the needle for this team yesterday, and it was really disappointing to watch. I mean, it was to the point where even Hydra was getting world starred by Awakening. Like, the Thieves just didn't have anything really going their way. And after Boston won those first two rounds for themselves, they ended up losing the next one and then won the next four after that. It hurt to watch, man, knowing, like I said, how we played against Optic and then seeing how we played against Boston, just not the same at all. Scrap did have a decent map though, going 10 and 6 with a 1.67 KD, Envoy 9 and 7 with a 1.29 KD, but then both Ghosty and Hydra finished with 3 kills. You don't want to see that, especially from Hydra. He's the guy that you typically want to be getting your first bloods, and if he's not getting those, that really, really hurts your team. You never get the chance to play with numbers advantage. And obviously, I don't want to put the blame fully on Hydra that it's expected of him to constantly be getting first bloods. But when that's kind of your role, if you're not fulfilling that role, that does make it a little difficult for the rest of the team, because now you're playing with a numbers disadvantage. So that was really unfortunate for the Thieves. As I said, we ended up losing that one 6-3. But that takes us to the Hacienda Control, where the Thieves kind of had a bit of a bounce back here. They started off really, really hot. They had defense to start off, and they ended up winning this map 3-0. It was so fast. It was a very fast map. And everybody on the side of Thieves finished this map positive. Scrap was the number one in that regard, going 17 and 6, 2.83 KD, and Envoy was right behind him, going even with a 12 and 12 K or a 12 and 12 stat line. And then Ghosty had 9 and Hydra had 18. So really there wasn't a lot of kills to be had for this map. I mean, with how quick it went, really wasn't too much going on there. Everybody on the side of Breach was negative. Snoopy ended up going 9 and 15. So once again, that should kind of show you how much Snoopy was doing in the first map, as well as show you how well the Thieves bounced back in this map 3 here. And I felt like this was a really good opportunity for the Thieves to gain momentum going into their best hardpoint map, which was up next in the Protocol. They ended up moving on to that map and winning 250 to 187, where once again the Thieves looked much better. Now, 187 to 250 is really not a bad scoreline for Boston. It's not like the Thieves blew them out of the water by any means, but they looked a lot more comfortable than what they did in the Vault hardpoint. And that's all we can really ask for at this point with how the Thieves hardpoint has been looking. It just really hasn't been what we've needed it to be. We finally got to see something where they looked a lot more cohesive than what we've seen in the last several hardpoint maps that they've played. And they started off with the lead. They held it all the way up until about the start of the second rotation. Once they got to the second rotation, they lost about one hill. And then after that, they took the lead right back and held it the rest of the way. As I mentioned in the control, everybody on the side of Thieves was positive in this map as well. Everybody on Boston, negative. Ghosty was the one who led the charge this go around, though, 35 and 17 with a 2.06 KD. And then Envoy had a really solid map as well, going 31 and 26. Hydra was 23 and 22, and Scrap 28 and 27. Snoopy was the only one for the Breach to break 30. He had 30 and 32, but it just wasn't enough with how the Thieves teamwork kind of played out in this map. So the Thieves did a much better job of holding their hard points. They had a couple moments where they would get broke, but they were able to basically break right back in. And that really prevented Boston from kind of pushing to even closer to where the Thieves were at. And they just made some really good plays. It sounded like when they did the listen in that they were really locked in on counting names and making sure they knew where everybody was at and, kind of being prepared for the next step, which I feel like we haven't necessarily seen as much in some of their recent ones. It seems like it's been much more of just like straight up call outs. It hasn't been, what do we do next? How do we prepare for the next thing? And I think that really adds a big difference to, these lesser teams, or not lesser, but not as good teams versus these high level teams, as the high level teams are thinking steps ahead. And I just feel like the last couple times we've had the listen ins, we haven't gotten as much of that. But this go around, it seemed like they were locked in on, what really needed to be done, what needed to be executed in order for them to win this map. And that's exactly what they did. That led us to the Hacienda Search and Destroy map 5, where I really thought that Thieves had a good opportunity here to end up closing out the series in a reverse sweep. But they weren't able to do that. They ended up losing this one 6-3 once again. And this one really hurt because I felt like how they played Hacienda against the Heretics the other day, that this was a good opportunity for the Thieves to get that reverse sweep here. You start off with that Hacienda going 3-0, then you go on to the Protocol, you win that one 250 to 187, and everybody was looking pretty solid. Then you go into this Hacienda, you think you have momentum, and they ended up just kind of fizzling out, unfortunately. Boston ended up winning the first 3 rounds, and right after the second round, Thieves had to pause the series to kind of figure out there was a ping discrepancy, I believe, that was going on. And I think that kind of slowed the pace down a little bit. They kind of lost their momentum. And from there, they ended up only winning 1 round after the third round. And then Boston ended up taking the next one. Thieves won 2 in a row. So it felt like there was a chance. It felt like they were bringing it back. And it was 3-4, and the Thieves were in a 3v2 opportunity. It just seemed like they had everything kind of in their favor. And next thing you know, we end up throwing the round away. It felt like it was an unlosable, and we ended up losing it in really unfortunate fashion. At that point, that put Boston up 5-3, and they ended up getting the first blood in the final round, and that ended up closing out the series there. They were able to finish, I believe, flawlessly. So Boston ended up getting away with that win. Thieves finished the split 6-2 or 5-2, and so did Boston. They ended up taking the lead on us, and we should be playing up against, I believe it is Vancouver or no, it's going to be against the Ravens in round one of the major. So, look forward to that. And we will be watching those and making sure we have more breakdown videos after the tournament is said and done. But we got to wish the boys luck. They struggled a little bit the last couple weeks, but hopefully on land they can kind of turn things around. That's going to do it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. And if you did, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next one.